Hi, welcome to You Can Talk. My name is Ruth Finney, and this is a channel solely dedicated to helping you talk your way to healthier relationships. Whether you're married or dating, if you have some level of family or friends or people you work with, then somewhere in at least one, if not all of these areas, I know you've struggled with communication. If you're ready to experience some real change in communication with your relationships, and you're willing to put some simple principles into practice, become a subscriber of You Can Talk. Click that notification bell and walk with me every Thursday through the user's manual as we discover some revelations in communication that you can incorporate into your life. On this channel, we will tackle some of the most common and challenging issues we all face so you can talk your way to healthier relationships. In this episode, we're going to look a little closer at 2 of the 4 principles of talk I mentioned in the first episode and understand how applying these 2 principles will not only bring greater caution to the words you allow to part from your lips, but will also alter your approach in a way that puts the listener in a better position to receive what you have to say. Understanding and applying these 2 principles will literally change the underlying structure of your communication. So the first principle I'll discuss is the letter T in talk, which stands for Tame the Tongue. I know you're thinking, the way I communicate is fine. It's my partner that needs to work on their communication. Well, either way, if the words in your conversations tend to be more combative or can even become highly ignitable, meaning after conversing, someone is usually left with 2nd or 3rd degree burns, and you're left trying to figure out, how did this fire even get started? Then hang out here every Thursday as we look through the user's manual to discover some do's and don'ts and recommended troubleshooting methods from the original manufacturer on how to tame the tongue. So maybe you're asking, why should I even bother taming my tongue? We have the freedom of speech, and I should be able to say what I want to say, however I want to say it, and it shouldn't matter how I choose to express myself. I get it. And one thing you are right about for sure, we have been given the freedom of speech. However, it's not just a law your political leaders may have passed. It's actually a gift from God. And the reason it matters how we choose to use it is because of the level of power that it contains. Let's take a look at our user's manual. Now, for those of you who are new to this manual, it's basically a bunch of books within a book. And the very first book entitled Genesis, which means the beginning. In the first chapter, the Creator spoke 9 times when he was creating the universe and uses his words to create the heavens, which is what we know to be the levels of the atmosphere, including the realms of space and everything we see here on earth. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth." In verse 3, "And God said, let there be light, and there was light." This is what we know to be the sun. In verse 6, "And God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters, the water above in the atmosphere from the water beneath, which we enjoy and partake in." In verse 8, "And God called the expanse heaven." In verse 9, "And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so." This is what we know to be our continents. In verse 11, "And God said, let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit, in which is their seed, each according to its kind upon the earth. And it was so." Meaning its gifts and its future lies within it. In verse 14, "And God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heaven to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, and for days and for years, and let them be lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth. And this is what we know to be our moon and our stars. In verse 20, and God said, "Let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the heavens." This is the fish and the fowls of the air. In verse 24, and God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things and beasts of the earth according to their kinds." And it was so. This is every animal and, unfortunately, every annoying little insect. In verse 26, and God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." And God made Adam and Eve. In verse 29, and God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food." Verse 30, "And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creepeth on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given you every green plant for food." And it was so. So we see here from the very beginning, literally every time he spoke, something happened. Well, the same goes for you and I. What you may not realize is that the same God who used the power of words to speak life into existence also gifted us with the power of words, not to create the universe, but to communicate with him and with each other, and ultimately to create the lives we've been chosen to live. Every time words leave our mouths, something is being manifested. As small and innocent looking as the tongue may seem, its manufacturer has made it the most powerful weapon in our bodies. How we speak to God, ourselves, and to others dramatically influences our lives. Just as the tongue was created to speak life, manifest goodness, take in nourishment, it also has the power to start wars, corrupt minds, cause deception, and when used carelessly, it will destroy the human spirit. The tongue also has the power to terminate life and put an end to everything good in a relationship. If you think about it, we've had prisoners with long sentences create monumental change for the good, such as Nelson Mandela. And in direct opposition, we've seen prisoners who've caused more destruction to communities with their tongues than when they ever lived among us. That's because they know fully how to harness the power living within the tongue. So rather than using your tongue carelessly and aimlessly, commit to learning how to harness that power to create the healthier relationships you desire and you deserve. So the second principle I'll discuss is the letter A in TALK, which stands for approach with compassion. Approach is everything. I cannot speak to this principle enough. When we approach others in a combative, insensitive, nonchalant, and abrasive or even accusatory kind of way, walls immediately are put up, and they are going to be less receptive to what we have to say. We've often heard it said, nobody cares what you have to say until they know that you care. Well, those words still ring true to this day. Approaching people, whether we know them or not, in a respectful, caring, loving, appreciative, and courteous kind of way automatically shows compassion. Has this ever happened to you? You're in the midst of a conversation, and all of a sudden someone rudely interrupts and makes a statement like, "We need to talk." Or maybe they said something like, "Get over here, you need to hear what I have to say." Or maybe they said, "I don't care what you have going on, you're going to listen to me." What happens next? You guessed it. Our walls of defense immediately go up because we don't know what's about to come at us. And even if we do, we're still ready to do battle because we already know this person is not concerned about us, our feelings, or anything else we have going on. Now, what if that same person approached you like this? Forgive me for interrupting, but when you get a moment, I have a matter I'd like to discuss. Or what if they said, I'm not sure what your plans are for the day or whether or not this is a good time for you, but before the end of the day, can we schedule a time for us to discuss this matter and negotiate a time from there? Being compassionate is not just about feeling pity for others, but more so about being kind-hearted and respectful and considerate to the life circumstances of others. In these two statements, the giver is automatically putting themselves in position to consider the other person. And in return, the person being approached is now more likely to at least listen to what's being presented. From there, we can move into dialogue because we haven't been unexpectedly invaded by an aggressive tone or forceful words. In our user's manual, the book of Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4 says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interest of others." In a day where communication is done less face-to-face and more through electronics, hiding behind a keyboard through text or email or social media does not excuse the words or tone of our approach. In fact, it only puts our message at greater risk for misinterpretation, misunderstanding, barriers being raised, and ultimately deletion. So really, we should be even more careful when choosing to communicate this way. When I'm unsure about whether my message could be misinterpreted, I'll ask a trusted friend or coworker to read over it before I click send. It never ceases to amaze me how easily others can read more into what you think is a simple and direct and clear message. However, when the receiver can't hear your tone, see our body language, and get a feel for our intention, there's always room for misunderstanding. If the communication in your relationship is more insensitive to one another's feelings, and just the thought of entering to another conversation with this person is draining the life out of you right now because you know it only leads to a dead zone, find out what can happen in your relationships as we continue taking lessons from the Master on how to approach with compassion. We'll look at alternate ways to approach someone about a topic we need to discuss in a more thoughtful and courteous manner, helping prepare them to receive what we have to say. This way, both of us walk away satisfied and hopeful about the progress we're making towards getting to a healthier space. The goal with UCANTALK is all about making progress, not about reaching perfection. If you're ready to experience some real change in the communication you're experiencing in your relationships, commit to discovering how you can tame the tongue, approach with compassion, listen deeply, knock down the barriers, and talk your way to healthier relationships. Let your communication be the light of love the world so desperately needs to hear. If you can relate to any or all of these communication struggles and are tired of the seemingly endless cycle of communication barriers that are keeping you from the relationships you desire to have with others, then subscribe to UCANTALK, select that notification bell, and meet me here on Thursdays for the next episode, where we'll be looking a little closer at the other two of the 4 talk principles: listen deeply and knock down barriers. Leave a comment below and let me know which of these 2 talk principles will be your tip of the week or talk-inspired practice that you're willing to commit to working on. Thanks for watching, and if you would, please like and share this video, and I'll see you here next Thursday.